Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with proud teacher, author, musician, and martial artist expert Frank Delo Jr. He has spent most of his life doing a number of things that are not in any way nursing, to the shock and dismay of some Filipinos. Instead, he has completely wasted his time performing music around the globe and teaching students from age 3 to 90 plus the joys and benefits of music and martial arts. Frank shares his value with the world from his incredibly secret fortress somewhere in the greater Chicagoland area. It's a story with plenty of grit and mileage. Dig in.
No questions on my end. I'm just happy to be here. So
yeah, absolutely. Me too. So where are you located on the planet?
Oh, I'm in the Chicago suburbs, about a half hour from downtown.
Right on. I love Chicago. Yeah, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. Well, man, I'm looking forward to getting into your work, getting into your world. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
So let's get into, before we get into exactly what you do as a teacher, an author, musician, your martial arts, there's a lot going on. I want to know, if I put you in front of a bunch of third grade students, 10 or 11-year-olds at career day, and we wanted to get to the essence of what you do on a daily basis, and one of the kids in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
Well, first, the big thing is I help people. I help people by being who I am, giving them what help they need based on who I am. You know, like for some people, that's being a teacher or doctor. For me, since I've been into so many things and I've spent a long time figuring myself out, that's how I try to help people with who I am. You know, also I have to make enough money to live, so I have to, I have to intersect those points. But
so
the big thing is helping people.
For sure, yeah. So let me ask you this: what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Well, I had a lot of media influence, so at some point I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. That's a little dated now, so we'll say one of the martial arts related cartoon characters for a younger audience. But I wanted to be something with martial arts. And something about that show, I wanted some fun, helpful community around me, an extension of family. And then, I was also already in music. My parents had me in like childhood violin, Suzuki violin classes when I was like 4 years old. So I'd already been doing some kind of musical instrument for a while. So I knew I wanted that to be part of my life too. Dad was a police officer at the time. So part of that again was wanting to help people, protect people if I could. So a lot of big general ideas, if you'd asked me at that age.
How did you acquire all of these skills? How did all of these seeds get sown into you to evolve into who you are today? Take me back to where you were born and raised and how these got cultivated.
Yeah. So, my most of my life I've been around Chicago or the suburbs, the Chicagoland area. My family immigrated here from the Philippines sometime in the 70s. So part of it was their influence of trying to give me a better life than they grew up with. They worked hard to get to a point in their lives where they could come here and make better lives for themselves. So, yeah, a big part of it was their influence of giving me something better for myself. But also, there was a lot of unique challenges at the time. We're back in the 80s and 90s. Our sense of like world culture was a little different. We've certainly made a lot of progress now. So back then it was, being true to myself and my origins and balancing also the world the environment I lived in, middle class, Midwestern U.S. So discovering myself and how I fit into both of those worlds. And then I'm grateful as well. There was a lot of variety of different things to explore interests. I spent a lot of time in public library trying to, this was basically pre-internet, right? So having access to information about the world at large, had a lot of time and opportunity to reconcile all those different areas.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: who's been kind of that hero, that bedrock inspiration for you in your life?
Well, Dad played an important part. Very, very important part. He's within the last year he's passed, but while he was around, he was able to see kind of the fruit of the effort he put in. He was my earliest influence for everything I do now. Actually, he was also a musician. He was gigging around there's like kind of a Filipino band scene back in the 70s. They did a lot of covers of popular music. He was my first example of work that helps people. And he was my first martial arts teacher. I outlined in my book how, what I thought was childhood play, sword fighting, stick fighting. He was actually beginning to teach me our family's martial arts system, but, in his fun and caring way, he laid the groundwork for all of those different aspects of who I am. So, to this day, it's still, I still consider his influence, a large part of my life and who I am, and the value I share to my audience now.
So how do you take all of these things that you do? You're quite busy. There's a lot going on. You're maintaining all of these passion projects and, making a living and supporting your family. How do you balance all of this? How do you take care of everything professionally to the best of your ability and then evolve as a human being?
Yeah. Well, the big overarching idea is connecting the dots and finding the things that are the same. I think, certainly with the patchwork career like mine, a lot of things seem at the face very different. What would martial arts or music have to do with each other, or, any of these other things? So for me, they're both things that require focus, time, and energy to master. And then what I do with those skills, the overarching value for me is to help people. So I think for anyone who's building their patchwork, and certainly if you're in the arts, I think people understand, you piece your career together a gig at a time, but it's finding the things that are the same, finding that connecting thread. And then kind of accepting that you don't have to be any one of those things. You're the totality of who you are. Just because I'm one thing doesn't exclude me from being the other. So as far as like personal, psychological, like how I manage that internally, that's how I look at it. Practically speaking, let's say I'm grateful we live in the age of this technology and information. My smartphone and scheduling capability has been really important for me. I keep a lot of like Google Docs or note-taking apps that help me kind of organize and outline what it is I have to do in the different aspects of my career. So yeah, harnessing technology and making things as efficient and as easy as I can, given all the diversity of my life.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into a much younger version of you, say 18 years old, you can give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, I think accept your whole self, and maybe don't be afraid to take some more risks and be okay with possibly making more mistakes. That discomfort is how we learn and grow. So, I think my upbringing, part of my upbringing was, I was put into like a religious school background. And I think that programmed me with a lot of caution and predisposition to guilt. So, and that saves you from some things, but then it stifles you in other ways. So, I think I would tell younger me to be a little more okay with who I really am and to be okay with taking risks and making mistakes.
So, Frank, at this point in your life, of everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved into, what are you ultimately the proudest of? That aspect of accepting myself, I think, because I did spend a long time trying to reconcile myself into a single identity or single role. I'm proud that I was able to kind of see the big threads connecting everything and to understand that I'm not any one thing. I'm the totality of myself. So, and I've seen a lot of people that they squeeze themselves into a single role. They deny parts of themselves, and it just comes out in other ways that aren't always healthy, or they could be harmful to the people they love. So, I think I'm the most proud of learning to be myself. So, as a musician, what was the first live concert you saw that blew you away, that made you think, wow, I want to do that one day?
I would say Chicago Symphony. Yeah, probably my earliest experiences being around. And we're so fortunate in this area to be in so saturated with talented artists. But being in that setting, the grandeur of being in the big concert hall and hearing a orchestra of that caliber, I think at the time would have been like Sir George Solti at the podium. I had some of my earliest clarinet idols were in that section. And then there's been a lifetime of mind-blowing experiences like that since, but the earliest ones would have to be Chicago Symphony.
Right on. Let me ask you this. If everyone out there has a perception of you and all these roles that you play, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I've become a little more self-centered, hopefully not in a negative way, but I kind of understand now that I'm living my life for me, and not for the sake of my family. My parents, when they were around, I worked, I had a lot of work to do to surmount that, that I needed to make life choices that pleased them or kept them happy. So, I think I'm usefully self-centered because I feel like I can't truly help people, like the most people, in the most honest way if I'm not me, if I don't focus on me. And I've noticed too, like when my focus drifts and my condition starts to suffer, then I can't help people as well. So that useful, productive self-centeredness.
So if anyone out there wants to reach out, learn more about you, what you're doing, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
Yeah, well, there's a couple places because of the different things I do. My book, 5 Angles, is on Amazon. And you can also find it at 5 Angles, the number 5 Angles, FMA.com. If you want to explore my music world, and some of my music content, it's Clarinet Dojo, DOJO, clarinetdojo.com, or I have content on YouTube and Spotify. And if you're in the area and you want to train martial arts with me, it's Amalgam Martial Academy. Amalgam. So amalgam is a word for a mix of things. Like the life I've built, the school I run is an eclectic mix of different martial arts. So those are the places you can find me.
Wonderful. And I will put all those links in the show notes. This has been really, really refreshing. Frank, thank you for your story, the work you're doing, and have a wonderful 2025.
You too. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.